Shannon Domingo, the baddest, and this is the fastest 40.
Shannon, currently your full-time job is working for the NFL.
I'm a social media programmer, and we program all the socials across the NFL. Like, there's always this stigma that women don't know sports, that I've gotten so many times when people ask me, oh, what do you do for work? And I say, I work for the NFL. And then they go, oh, are you a cheerleader?
And who would be asking you those questions, men?
Men.
I guess I always knew that you sang. And like you sang with James Corden. We need to show that video.
Oh my God.
Okay, let's segue.
Okay.
Let's talk about dating.
Oh my God. Okay. He essentially ghosted me and then kept coming back and then would go away and then kept coming back and then would go away and then got someone pregnant and then came back. Thank you for having me. I feel so honored to be here.
I should go ahead and introduce who my guest is right now. This is a good friend of mine, Shannon. Is it Domingsil? Domingsil?
Yeah.
Domingsil. Shannon Domingsil, my good friend, is on the podcast today.
That's me.
When we went to school together.
Chapman University, baby.
Indeed. And you were a year above me. A bit about you. You're Filipino American, born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii. Currently, your full-time job is working for the NFL.
The National Football League.
The NFL. Your job there is to mainly create, manage content on the TikTok account, mainly. And if people follow that account, they could maybe see you occasionally pop up on their screens as a host.
Here and there.
Here and there. And through this job, which you've been at it like over a year now, have you? Or 2 years?
3.
3 years?
3 this December.
Oh my God.
I know. The time is ticking.
Yeah, well, okay, we'll have to talk about staying in a job for,
that long.
over a year. I mean, that's something I'm really interested in. You've worked with a lot of notable figures, such as Roger Goodell, which is the
Roger Goodell.
Roger Goodell.
Goodell.
Roger Goodell,
yes.
who is the current commissioner of the NFL. I literally had to search up a lot of these names, like their pronunciation. Like the World Cup champion Kylian Mbappe. Okay, Saweetie, I know how to pronounce that.
Yeah,
Jason Derulo, Jerry Rice, who I had to Google. He was the former professional football player who was with the 49ers, Raiders, and the Seahawks. We're filming this in almost the end of 2023, which is crazy.
Right.
But what we can expect from you and your team is you're going to be grinding out big new ideas for big upcoming events such as the Pro Bowl and the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is in February, right, of next year?
Yes, both the Pro Bowl and the Super Bowl in February. Pro Bowl is the week before Super Bowl, and Pro Bowl is usually in Vegas. But since the Super Bowl is in Vegas this year, they moved the Pro Bowl to Orlando. So we're going to be at the Pro Bowl in Orlando and then Vegas for Super Bowl.
I see. We already kind of spoiled to the listeners that we graduated from the same school, but we graduated from the same program.
Yes.
News and documentary.
I was her orientation leader.
Yeah, I wanted to say you were my orientation leader. And I will say that you've always been a role model in the program. Like, actually, though, I think you were just quite the overachiever. And you, before working at the NFL, you also interned at Seacrest Studios at the Children's Hospital in Orange County. You also were an intern at CNN. You were an intern at the Today Show. You were an intern at E! News. You were also a news fellow at Refinery 29, right?
I was.
Is that? And then you also produced this documentary about this crazy Texan fertility fraud.
Oh my God.
It's like racked up a couple million views.
Yes. And because it was just such a crazy story. Like, you would have never thought. I mean, it's horrific what
what exactly happened to people who
so
wanna
basically the whole documentary, or the piece, was about fertility fraud, where essentially, right, like, a lot of people can't get pregnant, and so they'll go to a doctor, they'll go to a fertility doctor, et cetera, like look for a sperm donor, this, that, and the other, go through the process, whatever. There have been cases where fertility doctors will actually inject their own semen into these women, even though those women picked a sperm donor, like a sperm donor, that's, the legal process.
Yeah.
And then obviously then birthed those children, but the mother never knew the family never knew. And so this woman that we were following in Texas, her name is Eve, she wanted to find her birth father. And because, you know, the files were shut and blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a lot of things where people will donate and be like, I'm anonymous. But then she took one of those, what is it called? Like 23andMe, like one of those. She was like, oh, I have a half sibling or something like that here. Like, let me go see. But then things didn't line up. And eventually, as she kept investigating and asking questions, she found out her biological father was her mom's fertility doctor. And then through there, found other people who had basically been assaulted by this doctor. So she has a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of, because I don't remember how many, but she does have half siblings from him. Like, this is not, her mother wasn't the first victim.
Yeah.
And it was just like a whole thing of her trying to bring it to light and have a law made for these people to be held accountable, because it's assault.
Yeah. And I wonder what the motive is for the doctor to be like injecting.
They're just sick.
Yeah, I guess that's easy.
They're just sickos. Yeah, but it was a very interesting story. She was amazing. But yeah, like I had produced that when I was still a undergrad, so that was really cool. Like we filmed it in Texas and stuff.
You have always been someone with a very strong work ethic, and I could tell like over the years of you know, taking some classes with you and then just seeing the work that you do and seeing you grow in the entertainment industry. I'm just like, how did she become this way? You know, like I would love to deep dive into your
psychological
family, your family upbringing, like your family values. How were you raised? All of that.
So like Melissa said, I'm Filipina, and I was born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii. I mean, I was the firstborn immigrant daughter. You know what I mean? And I feel like, and for those people who are the firstborn daughter to immigrant parents, y'all know it's tough out here. Yeah. And I always think about like, how did I become like this? But I was raised, I feel like, not outside of the box. My dad grew up in Hawaii, brought over my mom from the Philippines. They got married, and we weren't rich, right? Like they all immigrated to Hawaii from the Philippines to have money for their families. And I will say this though, when people do meet my parents, they're like, oh, I get it. And I'm like, what does that mean? But I think because my mom especially, she's very much like out there. And that's probably where I get a lot of my personality from, is from my mother. But yeah, I don't know. I think I was just always this go-getter type, like even in middle school. Well, here's the thing. I love attention. And I think ever since I was little, I loved attention. And my mom was a part of the church choir, and she would always bring me because they couldn't afford a babysitter. And so I would be singing with them. And because of that, I think I loved to sing and perform. Yes. My cousins would tell me all the time that, like the typical stories you hear from actors and singers right now, I would set up something for them, have them come sit down, I would perform for them and things like that. So I think that had just always been my upbringing and who I was because of my love for singing and performing and attention. Yeah. And so growing up, I think in middle school, elementary school, high school, college, like I loved being a part of things where I can do something that makes a difference, but also selfishly have attention.
Right. Wait, so your parents met in the Philippines and then your dad came to Hawaii first? Or
I think so. I always ask them and then I forget because I have the memory of Dory.
We're both wearing blue today.
Oh my God, so fitting. My dad grew up in Hawaii from 11, 12, 13 years old, around there. And then, but would still go back to the Philippines because he has family there.
Right.
They're from the same province in the Philippines. And so I think eventually met and then had long distance ? And then would just visit her, call the whole nine, court, and then said, come on over, girl. And she said, all right.
Wow.
I think, let me double check on that. But yeah, they met in the Philippines 100% because my mom didn't come until her and my dad got married.
I always love hearing how my friends' parents met.
I know. Like, I'm just so nosy
because like they met with an in-person meet cute, you know? And like, that's not something we get anymore. And I was like, oh, I want that.
Yeah. No, it can happen. That's how me and my boyfriend met. We met in person.
Really?
Yeah, at a concert, girl.
Oh my, I'm going to a concert tonight. You know, I'll tell you how my parents met.
Yes, please do.
And so my dad, he's known to host the Hot Girl Walks before Hot Girl Walks became a thing. He grew up in Taipei, and so lush scenery and a lot of beautiful hikes there. And so he'd host a lot of these hikes with his good friends, either like coworkers, college friends, I'm not sure, but good friends. And, you know, Asians.
Asians.
We love to be late. Not me. I feel like I'm not late.
I'm late. I was literally late today.
Like 30 minutes.
It's really bad.
No, but she was coming from Torrance. It was so far.
Oh, yeah.
But he hosted one time this walk, and like obviously all of his friends are running late. But my mom was a +1 of a friend that he invited. And so my mom was the one who actually was the first one to arrive.
She was on time.
So she was. And as they were just waiting for everyone to arrive, they were just chatting. And that's how they connected. Yeah.
And then they hit it off.
I guess
and they
so.
started dating.
Yeah. And here I am.
And here she is. And here I am.
You said you love to sing.
Yes.
And also you're Filipina. What is
those correlate.
What's your go-to karaoke song?
I mean, If I Ain't Got You by Alicia Keys. I love a Whitney Houston. I'll sing anything Whitney Houston.
Right.
My favorite is I Have Nothing, just because I love a good ballad. I love a good belt.
I remember seeing a video of you singing in a boxing ring.
Yes. That was in Cambodia. It was so random because, again, love attention. But we were in Cambodia. Me and my roommate Alistair, we decided to go on like a month-long Asia trip before. This was literally right before COVID.
Yes.
Like 2019 going into 2020. Yes. We wanted to go on like a last trip before we graduated college and started the real world and, you know, things like that. And we were walking the streets of Cambodia, and then I just hear from a distance like what sounded like karaoke. Like it sounded like somebody singing.
And your Filipino bone was like,
yeah. No, my Filipino senses were tingling, and I was like, follow the sound. And so I was like, we have to go find it. And so I'm walking, and Alistair, she is so great about just like letting me find things. But yeah, I was like, we have to find it. And then I was like, oh, is this it? I'm like, that's weird, because it was a boxing ring, whatever thing. And I was like, that's weird, but that's where the sound's coming from, so let's go see. And so we walked in there, and I was like, and people were just in the middle of the ring singing, and I was like, need it. And so I was like, can I go next? And yeah, I just love anywhere that I can perform and sing, I'll do it. And I'm trying to pursue it professionally and like more with my free time now. But really anywhere that I can sing, I'm gonna do it.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I guess I always knew that you sang. And like you sang with James Corden. We need to show that video.
Oh my god, that was like the peak. I was like, there's no going up from here. I was a freshman in college.
I remember when I was in your orientation group, and then you were introducing yourself. You're like, my name's Shannon. I'm a news and fun fact, I sang with James Corden on the Late Late Show. I'm like, what? And then all of us new orientation babies, we like immediately went to your Instagram, and then we all watched that video. I was like, what?
It was so random. But again, I was like, because I was a freshman still when that happened, I was like, this is the peak. This is the best I could do.
Yeah.
There's no going up or down from here.
So you have star power. Listen, and you always knew that.
Right.
That. When did you, because you started, growing up in the, the church choir, singing, being Filipina,
I love how that's
like,
also
that's like a characteristic.
It is.
So like, when did you start moving into journalism then?
Oh, okay. So it was in high school, and I actually wanted to major in engineering. Funny enough.
Really?
Yeah, she's smart too, guys. She's pretty and smart and talented.
Brilliant. You are full of surprises.
Well, no, because I loved algebra and I loved physics. Well, because physics, you needed to incorporate algebra in there, and I just loved it. I hated shit like geometry. I couldn't fucking do it. I loved algebra. And my dad was really good at math and algebra too. But yeah, I wanted to go into engineering. And in high school, obviously, like, you're going to start looking for colleges and what colleges have the best programs for this, that, and the other. And my high school counselor, I tell this story all the time, and I always thank her and message her whenever I see her. But I remember going into her office and like talking to her about what I wanted to do in college and like this is what I'm thinking. She was like, you know what, Shannon, like I think you should like look into broadcasting. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, well, you know, because your personality, and I think you should like just look into it, just see if you're gonna like it, or like take a class here and see if you like it. And so we had a morning news show in high school. We had revamped it the first year that I was doing it. And I loved it. I was like one of the anchors, and like we did fun little segments, and it was bi-weekly, and like everybody would turn on the TV to watch it and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, attention.
If it ticks that, you're like a fly. You're going towards the light. Yes.
No, but seriously, like,
no, you're not the fly. You're the light.
Yeah.
sorry.
The wrong one. No, but I like loved it, and like the storytelling aspect. And I think as creatives, just even if you started later, you just know that you're a creative person.
Yeah.
And like being able to take pieces in your head and then do it and then formulate it so that other people can understand your story.
Yeah.
That's also like one of the reasons why we do what we do. Yeah, so I absolutely love the aspect of telling a story, of being in front of the camera and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, she was right. I do like it. And then I started looking at colleges, saw what schools had the best programs. I'd never heard about Chapman until I went on college tours. But then once I stepped onto Chapman's campus, and I always tell this story too, like especially when I was a tour guide, when I stepped on Chapman's campus and I toured it and I met the counselors and stuff like that, and knew of the programs, and like it's not in LA, but it's in close proximity, but it's still like suburban and whatever. I was like, this is the one for me.
Yeah.
And then from there,
we were also both tour guides.
yeah, me and Melissa have like very would you say parallel?
I would think we have a couple of similarities.
Like a lot of similarities
Yeah.
in our college experience.
Yeah, we both we're both in the same program. We both
We're
were
tour guides.
We like both like acted in a couple of shorts
Yes.
as well,
Oh my God, Melissa's
right?
you're such a good actress. I think you're so good. When I saw your first film, I was like, who is that? Because I like when I meet, the new students or like my orientation students, I can only know you to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And I just never knew that you knew how to act or like had that in you. And I was like, oh my God, she's so good.
I was also a theater major too.
Yes, she was. Oh my God.
And it's so interesting that people who go into a broadcast program, they always will have like a performing arts background.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Like that makes sense. Like you can't just like it's acting.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Like even if you're having the worst day, you're like gotta perform.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But everyone, like most of the people in our program, they're like, oh yeah, I grew up doing like musical theater.
Yes.
Exactly. So that's how we were born,
It was how we were born.
And then we fell into journalism.
Yeah. Tripped and fell.
Okay, the thing is about sports, your love of sports, I
Yeah.
never knew you had a love of
neither.
sports. And so, was there a big sports culture in Hawaii?
Yeah. So high school football is very big in Hawaii. But a lot of Hawaii people go on to get drafted into the NFL. Stuff like that. There's somebody right now, Andre Yoshivas, I think I'm saying it right. He's a wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's also from Hawaii, also half Filipino. So football back home is really big. And I wasn't super into football. You're in high school, like you want to go to all the things that people are at. And I would always ask my friend next to me, like, why are we cheering? What happened? They're like, oh, we got the first down. I go, what's a down? I knew nothing. About football in high school. I really didn't. And over time, I think I started to watch it a little more because my dad, I would sit down and watch it with my dad and be like, what's that? Or my friends who were like watching other games. I'm like, wait, so like I would repeat a rule and they'd be like, yeah, that's it. I'm like, oh, okay. Like to better understand it. And I never did anything sports related at Chapman either, other than like maybe 2 segments in Chapman News just to try. I'm like, I want to see what sports is like. And I just did that. But there was never a time where I was like, I'm definitely going to get into sports.
Yeah.
It kind of just happened. Yeah.
I remember when I was starting my time at Chapman and I was like, freshman.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to get involved with anything broadcast possible. There was the Chapman Sports Broadcasting Network. And of course, they mostly do football games.
Yes.
And I did not grow up here. So like,
Yeah.
I
Oh my God, because it's
do
only an American
not-
sport.
Yeah, I do not know any football at all. So I was there for like a whole semester plus almost a year. Like I somehow made it broadcasting football but I was like, what? You cannot make me camera operate. If I'm camera operating, I'm like, I don't know.
You're like, where's the ball?
Yeah, like
Where am I looking? I don't
who is
fucking know.
who? And if they tell me like, go capture this person, like a quarterback, wide receiver, I'm like,
Yeah. Give me a number.
Yeah, so I was the graphics operator.
I was gonna say that's all you did was graphics.
And I stage managed.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, do not put me on the
Well,
camera.
so did you like not learn really like the rules?
So I feel like okay, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and
Okay.
you can add on to my knowledge. And you could also explain football to people who don't understand football, because like I have a mainly Asian audience. The goal is to obviously, have your football go to the goalpost on either ends,
Right.
And there are these lines on the field,
Yes.
and you have to keep advancing those lines to
Correct.
get to that goal. That's like
Yes.
literally all I know.
Yeah, and that's essentially the basics of football.
And there's a timer. Okay. There's a timer.
Yeah, and if you don't get the ball out once the timer hits 0, then you get a penalty, which is called the delay of game. And then I think it's back 5 yards. So you basically add 5 yards more to what you have to gain. So
there's a sense of urgency. That's
there
why
is a
everyone's
sense
so
of urgency.
violent.
Yeah. But yeah, and that's what I tried, and that's what I didn't get for a long time too. I was like, what the hell is a down? And why does it say 2 and 8? What the fuck does that mean? But this is getting into as well as like I love to get people into the sport, especially women, because there's always this stigma that women don't know sports, that I've gotten so many times when people ask me, oh, what do you do for work? And I say, I work for the NFL. And then they go, oh, are you a cheerleader?
And who would be asking those questions? Men?
Who else? But it's like, you wouldn't ask a man that, would you?
No. Absolutely not.
Yeah, so.
Okay, speaking when men say that, are you a cheerleader?
Yeah.
I want to ask you about working there at the NFL. And now for almost 3 years now.
Yes.
I mean, like, first of all, how did you even get this opportunity? Mm-hmm. And second of all, do you think within those 3 years you see a shift in how women are perceived working in football?
Yeah. So I graduated in 2020, which was peak COVID.
Yeah.
And people were still working from home. People were getting laid off. And I was looking for a job.
Yeah.
And I was really worried because a lot of people, like I said, were getting laid off. And so it was like, is this job market going to be okay? And I was literally just Googling who the fuck is hiring. And I would apply to companies or positions that I felt could match what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I also kind of felt, I don't want to say the word desperate, but like it was very unsure times. So I was like, I feel like I just have to get a job to feel a sense of security. And I'll leave if need be or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember during COVID that, and the reason why I took a liking to football so much was because I watched these videos called Mic'd Up that the NFL did, and they basically mic up NFL players during the game, and you could hear what's happening, which is really funny because you don't see their personality typically during a game. You know what I mean? You just see stats, you just see scores.
Yeah.
But when these players get mic'd up, like they're hilarious. They're so funny. It's so entertaining. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. And so I started to take a liking to the NFL more and learning more, et cetera, et cetera. I was like, let's see if they're hiring. Funny enough, they were.
Serendipity.
Right. And so they were hiring for a seasonal position to basically help run their TikTok and other socials, but it was more so for that platform. I applied and I prayed to God that I was like, if this is right for me, give it to me, please. And then I got it.
You were there as a temp, but then
I
they
was
were
there
like,
as a temp.
Ooh.
Yeah, and once my time was coming up, I said, are you guys hiring full time? And they said, we might. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. They said we might be. Let me see. And I was like, okay. But still, I was looking at other places to just in case that they said no, sorry. But thankfully, they hired me full time. And the two people who had interviewed me and I basically like worked under left. And so I was the only person who knew and understood that platform. And it was a growing platform and still is. It's like obviously a lot of people want in on the TikTok. Yeah. And so that made me, I think, a little bit more valuable because again, I knew and understood the platform, the audience, what worked, et cetera, et cetera. Thankfully, they brought me on full time and we started growing more in different ways of reaching an audience. So it's been really cool to see the league's brand be able to be silly and to have a little bit more personality because typically when people think of the NFL, they just think boring, you know? But we are trying as social to really be able to engage with the audience who are football fans, but also not football fans. And that's kind of like, the things that I've been learning throughout my time, especially on TikTok, because as we all know, on the For You page, you could get anybody's fucking video. Like, I don't have to follow you to get your video. And so that's the brain that I have now in general, not just with TikTok, but like on Instagram even. Like people can see the NFL's posts and not know what that means. So what context can we add? Why should non-football fans care, et cetera, et cetera? And then to your second question of people seeing women involved in sports, I mean, there's always going to be, I think, negativity towards it. And you could even see, pretty sure you've seen the Taylor Swift stuff. Yep. So even with Taylor Swift getting involved because she's dating Travis Kelce, we want to, of course, cater to those new fans. She's a global pop sensation. And so many new eyes are on the league. And we, of course, want it to be this very open thing of like, come, like, your new fans, like, we welcome you. You know what I mean? Like, this is not just for men. This is not just for people who have been following football since they were 5 years old. This is not just for diehard fans. It's for everyone. And that's a testament to different things bringing in new audiences. And so it sucks when something like that happens where people are like, oh, who cares? Like, why are we giving a shit about this? Whatever. But it's like, we're growing the game. You know, like it always feels like people just don't understand that companies have to grow and we want to create and bring in new fans. And what better way to do that than different audiences than the ones that we've been catering to for the past however many years.
I would like some social media advice.
Okay.
Because you work in social media.
Right.
And is your current position the same or has it changed over the years?
It's technically the same. So I'm a social media programmer.
Okay.
We're called, like, in our department, I work with the programming team, and we program all the socials across the NFL, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Snapchat, blah, blah, blah. And all its counterparts.
I feel like everyone, social media is like such a big job for Gen Z
huge
young people to go into. And I feel like for me, I mean, when it comes to broadcast, when it comes to hosting, that is inextricably intertwined with social media. And I feel like because of that, I would argue that people in our background would have an innate sense of best social media practices. However, the thing that makes me insecure is that, I don't have like a degree in communications or in like whatever, or in marketing or whatever. And so whenever I, apply to roles that like say social media, I'm like, am I qualified? I know I feel like I'm qualified for this. However, if it seems that I just don't know how they can view me as someone that they would want to hire, if that makes sense.
And so, like, you're what literally makes you doing social media right now.
Yeah, that's only what I'm doing. But it is interesting. I feel like there's always the thought that I don't have those hard marketing skills.
Yeah. Well, so when I applied to the NFL, I had one, no sports experience, and two, barely any social experience. And they still took a chance on me, but like the only social media experience that I really had was with E! News.
Yeah.
But that got cut short because of COVID. But I think when you're applying to jobs, and even with this, like you're literally doing exactly everything that you can be doing. You know what I mean? But when it comes to applying to jobs and interviewing, I think what's so important, and I literally just gave a talk on this recently, but what's so important is really showcasing your personality and your skill. Because if you come off, and you do, right, as a person who is so eager to learn, is passionate about whatever the job is, whatever the company is, and then you also on the back end have editing experience, producing experience, camera experience, writing experience, etc., and you know how to put that to work and learn, I feel like companies should like see that and understand the potential of what they could be, even if like that person just needs a shot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like I think especially us who have a broadcast journalism experience, like we can film,
do it,
edit,
all of
produce.
it. We learn to do all of it.
And I think it's like a lot of these social media firms, I don't know, it's like they want to look for like a content creator, but then realistically a lot of people who become content creators, they work in front of the camera.
Right.
They hire someone else to do their editing.
Yeah.
They're not an in-house production. They don't do it
they're
all
not
themselves.
they're not an all-in-one.
Exactly. And so I was like, and the reason why I bring this up is because I've been job searching. And it's
whoever's
really,
hiring, hire my girl
like, and
Melissa. We're actually hiring at the NFL. You just got to learn about football.
I'll send them this as my audition tape.
Punt.
It's just interesting how, so I've been editing videos for YouTubers and content creators, but I feel like I've lost the joy of doing that because I feel like it is a very solitary job. And also I feel very jaded by the influencer community because it's like, it's hard working with people. It's hard working with that. I will say that there have been clients that have been lovely, professional, pay me well, but there are also certain influencers who are like, I can pay you, like my budget is $150 for a video. And
to edit?
I'm like, girl, it takes me 2 days to edit a video.
To edit?
Yeah, to edit.
$150.
And I was like, I'm in LA. I'm like, literally. I was like, I'm poor. Like, literally.
Well, and that's fucking annoying because I also, so aside from programming for socials, we also do a lot of production work and work with influencers, creators, players, blah, 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 blah. I know how much they get paid.
Yeah.
And so to say my budget is
exactly. I know.
Eat rocks.
And it's just their consumption habits are really high.
Yeah.
They spend money on a lot of things and unfortunately they don't allocate that money into production.
Right. But that's on them.
And in the past, like when I was growing my editing business, I would absolutely bend over backwards to start my business.
To have like a resume.
Yeah, and I started with $50 for a video.
Melissa.
I started with, because I had like a more like stable day job. And so I was like, if I have to start with $50, like that's cool.
I see. Yeah.
I mean, I've had, and it's something I want to talk about because you've been at the NFL for almost 3 years and like I've been hopping in and out and I always wanted stability, you know, a full-time pay job where like my insurance can be paid
this adulting thing is not fun.
And ever since I graduated, it's always been just like freelance or contract work. And posing the question back to you, like being in a role long-term that has that stability, and do you feel like almost those 3 years your mind is starting to like wander someplace else?
So being at the NFL for 3 years, I think it's been really cool to, I think especially to see my role expand so much, because when I first started, I was literally just finding and creating content for the NFL channels. And that was more so during COVID. I was back home in Hawaii, like waking up at 6 or 7 in the morning to watch games and to be on for game day. And once we got back into the office and there was opportunity to like go do things. And again, like we have been talking about, we learned and just know how to do everything.
Yeah.
And I wanted to take the initiative of showing what I could do. Similar of, you know, I can be in front of the camera, or I can write a script for somebody else to do. I can edit, I can post it, I can come up with copy, and I can tell a story, etc., etc. On top of that, like, I am also not somebody who wants to sit at a desk all day. And so when there were also opportunities coming up of working with creators or going out and shooting stuff and et cetera, I wanted to put myself into a position where they would think of me at, you know, for those opportunities, or even just saying, oh, I see that, you know, this is happening. Is it okay if I sit in on the meeting? Like, I just want to see how you talk about things, or what the process is, and stuff like that. And so over time, and starting in 2021, my role kind of grew more with, not only am I programming for socials and creating content and managing that platform, but I'm also able to first think of social content ideas that could work on the NFL platforms, going out and doing it, or like I've seen the ins and outs of start to finish working with the creator, of reaching out, coming up with ideas or whatever, you know, makes sense for the campaign, and then going through the process of contracts and red lines and things like that. Or if there's a creator that we're sending out to an event, then what does the hotel situation look like, their flights, and getting information for that, and setting up the days and times. If we're bringing them out somewhere and they're working with players, when are they going to do that, and like scheduling out. So I've thankfully been able to have like to grow well-roundedly in things that I want to grow in. It's not perfect, and I think that it's, you know, it's going to be a continuous growth, but I do very much enjoy working for the league because my team is so awesome. Like, I very much credit the fun aspects of my job to my team, because they are so great and so easy to work with, and so open and willing. And I, going back to asking, hey, can I sit in on this, or can I come and join, or like, oh, can I try to produce a few of these? And they're like, yeah, get your feet wet. Like, if you're interested in this, yeah, come along. And I think that's what's important too for young professionals and for people who want to keep growing in their company, is open your mouth.
Yeah.
Like, closed mouths do not get fed. And that's something that I live by. Like, it is also a testament as well to my leadership and my team, is they always feel so open. Like, even whether it's good or bad, I feel like I could go to, you know, whoever's above me and express my concerns or my positivity, or whatever the case is. Yeah, thankfully my role has grown a lot, and I mean, I want it to continue to grow more, and to be able to be a part of this growth that the league is seeing, especially as a woman, and then two, a woman of color. I think that's just really important to me, especially in sports, is I want to keep growing in that sense. And the only, not looking in other ways, but I've just been finding myself more and more wanting to pursue music a little more seriously. And although I'm not gonna like leave the league or anything, like, I have no plans to leave the league soon, like, I'm still taking time during my off days to make sure that I'm pursuing these other things outside of work that'll advance me in those ways and in that passion and career. So that's kind of where I'm at, is like, I'm doing the things that I'm hired and paid to do, and hoping to grow within there, and to be a leader, and to have a seat at the table, and, you know, to be someone that they can go to and know. And then on the other end, doing things for me, of I want to eventually have my own music and go on tour and be performing on stage across the country or in the world. And so as I'm working towards that, and you know, doing things for that, I'm still also trying to work and grow and be a leader within this company as well.
I have faith that, there will be a company out there.
Yeah.
And or I don't know when this podcast is going to really reach those new heights, but in the meantime, I have to be real with myself. It's like, I need something that is a bit more stable.
Right.
And so I'm working hard to try to find that.
Yeah. Well, and so do you want to go into social or producing, or what is?
Just anything that has development, producing, and then filming and editing. Just literally anything that I'm doing. And where I get to meet people.
Yeah.
I'm such a people person as well.
Yeah, I am too.
And I get a lot of my energy from being in
new spaces.
Yeah, in a group setting, or I like to feed energy off of people. I'm a leech. That's my spirit animal.
She said I'm a leech.
But okay, let's segue.
Okay.
Let's talk about dating.
Oh my god. Okay.
I
love this question.
Okay, I want to talk. I know that you keep your relationship pretty private.
Yeah, he's not posted anywhere, and it's more so one, I think it's really funny when people are like, show his face.
I'm like, oh my gosh, you're that obsessed with me.
I know. Well, it's just because people are, and rightfully so. I'm nosy. If I saw that, I'd be like, who is he? Or who is she? Because I'm so nosy. I just want to know. But it's private, not secret, but private. I feel like I'll post him eventually, but I'm like,
you're not in a rush. Oh.
We gotta be locked.
Got it.
Even though we are locked, but I'm like, until you're on one knee.
Wait, what was your dating experience before you met him?
I was really down bad. It was really bad. Before him, I was crying. I was a mess.
Were you on dating apps?
No.
Me too. I'm not on any.
No. Well, I was in college. Duh.
But that gets so awkward because you might match with someone that you
I don't care. I didn't care. I did not give a shit. And then in COVID, because we couldn't leave the house, so I was like, I need male validation. And I don't want to give him any satisfaction. Not my boyfriend, but the past men. But there was one where I was so down bad on this guy. So bad.
In Hawaii?
Yes. Not good.
And you met him in person or through?
No, I met him through a dating app, and then we eventually met in person, obviously, and we would hang out. But then I was moving to LA, and then he essentially ghosted me because very childish. But because I was like, oh, I'm leaving. It wasn't even okay, well, let's just spend the last few weeks or whatever the case was. He just went away and then kept coming back and then would go away and then kept coming back and then would go away and then got someone pregnant and then came back.
Oh my god.
Yeah. No, but he was.
You better use your Refinery 29 investigative skills to investigate that story.
Oh no! I did my deep dive when he finally told me. It was a whole thing. He was somebody that I very much was, those people that you just become obsessed with, but you don't know why, and then in the end you're like, oh, it was me. I'm funny. You're not funny. I'm funny, and you were there. Or this is just filling a void, or the anxious attachment, which is what I have. The anxious attachment of when you're clinging on to somebody, they're giving you attention, they take it away, and then you want more because you have that anxiousness and you feel that security when they're giving you your treats.
Are you more anxious in relationships then, or in
general? Oh, in general, I have anxiety. But thankfully, my boyfriend now makes me very secure, and he's also a secure person. And I read a lot of books, girl, because this other guy put me through it. But I read this attachment book. I think it's called Attachment or something like that. But it's a great read. But usually, anxious attachment styles and avoidant attachment styles always come together because they're so opposite, and it's the very push and pull and push and pull. But
that's I can get it. So I'm gonna reveal something about myself.
Okay.
I'm so extroverted. And so bubbly, and I like to be the one who initiates these friend hangouts.
Okay.
I'm very drawn towards avoidance.
No! But that's so fair because because that's just what happens. That's the game. I hate to call it a game, but like that's their game, is to give you these things, and it's so good, and then they take it away,
which is so unfair. Like in life, I'm just seen as like comedic relief.
No.
Like I'm just seen as, I was literally voted class clown in my senior.
Wait, I love that. That's so funny.
Yeah.
No,
I
think
feel like I'm seen as the funny woman.
But people love that. But here's my thing. I mean, after him, I was like seeing people because I was like, fuck this. And I was like, I'm doing so much better than you.
Yeah.
And like I would see people here and there, but when I met my man, I feel like, and maybe this is you having to come out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I know.
Guys like it when you make the first move. But when you're not being like too much, but like just enough, it's like, it's really annoying. But it's fun for guys, I'm sure, to feel wanted. Mm-hmm. And then after you make them feel wanted, and then they're head over heels for you, then they'll do like everything for you. You know what I mean?
I also think because like in my life, like dealing with, you know, like a chronic disorder, it's just like, I think I was like, oh, I'm not secure in myself, you know? And sometimes that's okay, because even when I met my man, like I wasn't like 1,000% secure with myself. But sometimes, and I don't want to say this to be like, you need a partner to blah blah blah, but your partner and yourself both obviously have to be on the same page, and like knowing your condition and like having empathy and understanding for that is also super important, and it takes a certain person. And like granted, when I met my man, I was like, these men exist. I was like, in LA. Like,
that's fucking, it was
okay. Wait, is he an LA native or a transplant?
He's a transplant, but
he's
been living in LA for like 11 like a long time. And he's from the Bay. Not the Bay. He's going to kill me for saying that. He's from Sacramento. Oh. He's like, that's not the Bay. I'm like, so we. But he's a transplant. Oops. Yes. We're not talking to you, girl. What the fuck? How did that happen?
I don't know how to respond to that.
That's okay.
Okay, anyway. So tell me the story of like how you two met.
So me and my friend, shout out Haley, we were going to Blast. Do you know who Blast is? If not, listen to his music. BLXST. If you love R&B / if you're Filipino, you listen to him. His audience is a lot of Filipinos. But we're going to a Blast concert. I think it was at the Palladium, if I'm not mistaken. That's the one in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And so we get there, and the line is long as fuck. And I'm like, fuck. We gotta go in the back, god damn it. And so we're walking, and she's like, oh my god, bitch, is that bleep? And it was a guy that she had hooked up with before, and my boyfriend was with him, like that was one of his friends. And my friend Haley had met the both of them a year prior, and then hooked up with the friend. And so she was like, oh my god, bitch, is that bleep? And she had told me about him, but I never knew what he looked like. And so I was like, where? And as soon as I turned, the bitch was walking already to his direction. And I'm like, oh, I coming. And she was like, oh my god, hey, like, I didn't know, like, you listen to Blast, whatever. And he was like, yeah. And she was like, oh, this is my friend Shannon. I was like, hi, I'm Shannon. Introduced myself to, well, let's just call him Bleep. I introduced myself to Bleep, and then introduced myself to my now man. And in my head, I was like, damn, he's sexy. I was so severely single. So. And he was single, and we had talked about it before, that like we weren't really looking for anything. But you know, when you go to a function, like a club, a concert, whatever, I don't know, me as a girl, I'm like, I'm making out with somebody that night. You know, is that you ever?
No, like, I do not go clubbing.
Okay, maybe just me.
And I don't drink as well. And like
I want to get there. Yeah, so nice. I'd introduced, and I don't know if I asked or she had asked or we both asked of like, can we cut in line with you? Like the line's so long, or they offered. I forget which one. They said, yeah, of course. Like, they were really nice. And, like, we were all talking. And I was asking him questions. He was asking me questions. And my friend Haley was like, oh, yeah, you know, she works for the league. And, like, that's always something for
like
guys.
A flex.
Yeah, because it's it's a National Football League. You know what I mean? Like, it is really cool. And so she was hyping me up, you know. And so we got in, and then we got each other's numbers, and then we went our separate ways. And they were doing their own thing, and like me and Haley were walking around. She wanted to go to the merch table. I was like, I want to make out with somebody tonight. And so I was like texting my man, who's not my man at the time, but like, you know what I mean?
My soon-to-be man.
Yeah, my soon-to-be man. And here's my thing about like, you should kind of make the first move. This cutesy song came on, and I was like, damn, I want to dance with somebody right now. And so I texted him, and I was like, I want to dance with you. Like, colon, slanty face. And he was like, where you at? And I was like, I'm in this spot. And so he came up behind me. We started dancing. He turned me around. We started kissing. I was like, yes. Yeah.
This tie is hot.
It's steamy in here. Yeah, we like kind of hit it off that night. And, you know, basically after we like kissed and stuff, he kind of stayed with me. When the concert was done, we like walked out to go to Bleep's car to get our bags, and like we were holding hands walking to the car and stuff like that. And we were just like talking outside of the car, like, oh, like we should go get sushi one day, because like in the line we had been talking about food or like doing this or that, and he was like, oh yeah, like we should actually do that, whatever, blah 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, for sure. And he was going camping that weekend, so he told me like, oh, like let's plan for it next week. And I was like, okay. With anything, and I feel like anybody who obviously has like gone through dating or like meeting somebody, you never know if you're actually gonna see them again. Yeah. And so I was like, I really hope I do see this guy, or at least go on one date together and then see. We had been like texting here and there after the concert, and like obviously he was going camping, but like he would send me pictures of like what he was doing. He was like, oh, like this is a waterfall or whatever, or like or he was like, this is the breakfast burrito I made for everybody. And I was like, oh my god, cute. Like he's sending me these pictures.
Acts of service. That is my number one love language, both giving and receiving.
Oh wow.
Right.
Well, hey, whoever wants to date, now you know her way, your way to her heart. So once he got back and we were still texting, I was getting impatient. I was like, is this man gonna ask me on a date, or like to clarify that we're gonna go get sushi or whatever, you know, the case is soon, or what? And so like I probably not so slyly brought it up, like, oh, like when are you free to go get sushi? Like we can go anywhere, blah 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 blah, whatever. And he was like, oh, how's Friday? And I was like, Friday's perfect. So we went to one of my favorite hand roll places, Kazunori. Have you had it?
Yes, I have.
So fucking good. Yeah, so we went there, like he picked me up and all of that, but he was like being really cute and stuff like that. But after that we like kept texting and hanging out, and here we are. So we met in I think September 1st, I think, is when either August 31st or September 1st. I forget which one. Of last year. So it's been a minute, but like we had been dating for months, and then I think by like December we had made it exclusive. Wow. And then he later asked me to be his girlfriend. And here we are, and he's so great. And like I tell him this all the time, and I tell people this all the time, that like I truly had prayed to God for like these characteristics within a man, and how I would like to be treated in a relationship, and how I want to feel in a relationship. And he is everything truly, and more that I prayed for. Oh my God. So he's amazing. I love him, and he's mine forever. There is hope, because again,
well, I have to step outside of the house, because I'll only go out every Saturday for my hot girl walks that I plan. Right. Imagine how my parents met
exactly.
For
well, that's what I mean. So now you should tell people to invite people.
That's literally what I keep telling them.
And then they don't do that for you? They're fake as fuck. Because there was no hope for me. I was over it. I was done. I was like, I don't care anymore. I don't need a relationship. Fuck this bullshit. And then he came.
Okay.
He swept me off my feet.
That's so fun to hear. We've been chatting for quite a while.
I know.
I think it's time to wrap up. Shannon, thank you so much for coming.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. I will come every week.
This was quite a wonderful, lovely chat.
It was so great.
We're on opposite sides of Los Angeles, but here we are.
And here we are. Here we are still meeting. And I had a lovely time.
I can't wait to see what you're going to do because you always come out with new stuff all the time.
Yeah. So, I know. I'm excited to keep, doing the things that I want to do and pursue. And I'm excited to see all the endeavors that you do. Like when I saw you I shouldn't say that, but like when I saw you post the first video for your podcast, I was like, oh my God. And it's such a great idea. And I like remember also thinking like, I wish there was a podcast like about Asian Pacific Islanders and their experiences and blah, 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 blah. And then it's like you were in my brain and then you were like, oh my God, I'm going to do it. And then you did it.
You see, we're just intertwined.
Yeah, literally.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Melissa.
Okay. Hi, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I'm very glad that I got to catch up with Shannon after a really long time, and also, happy International Women's Day. I think it's really fitting that this episode came out today because, Shannon is like mother to me. Anyway, before you go, I would really appreciate if you could give the podcast a follow on any platform that you listen to. Leave it a review on Apple Podcasts. It only takes like a minute of your time. And be sure to leave a star review on Spotify if that's where you usually listen to your shows. And also, we are on YouTube. So if you want to watch the video, I want to make sure it's accessible to everyone and not just Spotify listeners. That you can also subscribe to the YouTube. It's under my name, Melissa Cho, and there you'll be able to watch video. Thank you so much for continuing to listen, and any new listeners, welcome to Happy Hour. Many more exciting episodes to come out very soon, and as always, you guys are welcome to message me or send me any pictures of anyone you want to see on the Instagram at Happy Hour Pod, HAAPIHOURPOD. And I'll see you guys soon next week. Bye-bye.